interested, I'm more than happy to talk about the program. It's a fantastic program. It's the sort of thing where, unfortunately spaces are limited, but even if your kids can't go, I think it's a great thing to shoot for and keep in mind. And the reality is, it's a pretty broad network of people. Like, even if you don't do the program, we keep in touch. So if they enjoy that sort of thing, it's easy enough to get involved. As Tasha said, I'm a local attorney now. I'm kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none. I worked in computer science and robotics, but now I have clients who do stuff in physics, open source, computational biology, cryptography. I still write a lot of software. I write a lot of software both for my practice and for other people. And as that says, I'm still involved in a lot of public service events, either through Rotary or First Robotics. If you've been in San Diego, the San Diego Science Alliance was on board for a while that was in existence back in the day. So STEM is something that's very important to me. And then, as you can tell, like illustrations, I do a lot too. I illustrate children's books. There's a new book out. Actually, I don't have copies, I'm afraid, but you can find me on Amazon. So, just to give a brief timeline, this is me, my life in a nutshell. I grew up in Missouri, went to high school in Missouri, went out to Boston for college, grad school, law school. I did robotics at my TEP for a while. I worked on there's a South Park episode that makes fun of it, but there's the walking robot, Osmo. So that was my robot. I worked on the expression recognition for a little while, but it doesn't really walk. It's perfectly stable. Like, you actually aren't stable when you walk. But after that, I went to law school. I've been doing law now for almost 10 years. I was over 10 years. I was in big law, the big scary law firms with the scary attorneys doing the big deals for 8 years. And then I went solo about 3 years ago, and I've been practicing here in Mountain View since then. Like I said, one of the great things about being solo is you have the freedom to kind of take advantage of your time and to organize your priorities how you see fit. So one thing I could do at Big Law that I do now is law illustration, either for children's books. The LawMux, a multiplexer is an electrical engineering device that lets you switch between signals. So a LawMux is it's a career that works between different disciplines like technology and like the humanities, liberal arts. And some of these are also illustrations I do for manuals for attorneys on various issues. But it also gives me time to work on papers. One paper I had that came out 2 years ago was on open source and game theory. This is Thomas Skelley. He's a Nobel laureate in economics, I think. His research was on during the Cold War, mutually assured destruction and negotiations, commitment in view of those scenarios, which have a lot of applications in open source. So a lot of the work I do kind of blends fields like that, where there's a quantitative sort of analytical aspect to it, but there's also sort of the legal, qualitative humanitarian aspect, and merging those together to help people reach the conclusions and outcomes they want. Paper I'm doing, one paper that published recently in the Boston University Journal of Science and Technology Law is on offshore oil economics. And it's kind of the same idea. So in high school I did the Research Science Institute. I also did a program called National History Day. And it's weird how that sort of, the choices you make as a child plug in life, because I still kind of do that sort of two worlds type of practice today. This paper merges the history of the American Railroad with game theory again, and also with the economics of combining renewables offshore with offshore oil. And sort of the economic interplay of those two results in a very similar dynamic to what happened with the American railroads and the steel industry. There are solutions for it, which the railroads also came up for, but it's still untrivial. Which takes me to kind of the big picture topic about education. I talk a lot about STEM. Today we still divide education into sort of the humanities and liberal arts, and then STEM and the sciences and the hard sciences. And that's not peculiar to us. That's been going on since Pythagoras and 2,500 years. In the medieval times, it's referred to as a trivium and quadrivium. The trivium was grammar, logic, rhetoric, was sort of considered the foundation for learning, sort of investigation via language. And then the quadrivium were things like astronomy, music, geometry, investigation through numbers. Today we'll kind of call it math, science, STEM, and the others, liberal arts. And, today, I think a lot of people kind of push aside the trivium. In fact, I think the word trivial is, the etymology is derived from trivium. I don't think it's intentionally meant to be trivial in that sense, but that's sort of the progression of the meaning. People are sort of like, well, I think that's kind of the feeling today. There's this emphasis on science and technology, and the assumption that that's all STEM is. It's all that part of education has to be. And I think this just kind of, makes that visual. Today in the modern world, there's this huge emphasis on science and the thing into itself. And I'd argue that it's actually a little more complicated than that. Let's see that here. So the difference between these two is mostly, and this isn't 100% accurate, you can go ahead and challenge me on the definitions bit, but the trivium is really about clarity, and the quadrivium is really about prediction. Prediction and precision. Precision, which then results in predictions. So, you know, if I'm sitting here saying that the temperature of a field in the corner of the room with coordinates x, y, z is rising at this point, you know, that's a correct description. It's very precise. The corner, those coordinates. If I say there's a fire in the room, get out, that's clear. You know, in certain circumstances we want the former, in certain circumstances we want the latter description because it's more useful to us. You know, it's just another example. I could say that, you know, this thing right here oozes slowly. Everybody's mental image on board, know exactly what I'm talking about, it's oozing. I can also say that the coefficient, the viscosity coefficient is this, you know, with these parameters, you know, that provides you to predict. It's much easier to predict where that thing will be 3 seconds from now with the second description, but it's less clear, less conceptually satisfying as the first. So, you know, as moderns, we love prediction because frankly it makes money. Right, with prediction, and it also gives results. Results we like, you know, it helps us defeat our enemies, it puts us on the moon, it helps fight cancer, it does other things. You know, when it comes to the trivium and sort of the qualitative analysis, I think people kind of today punt to it and say, well, it's not really part of, you know, what we do with STEM, it's not part of what we do with education. That's kind of, and you see this in universities and the funding, NSF, NIH, all these things fund the sciences. We don't really have a comparable humanities-based funding system, so they're kind of going to the wayside. You know, people do talk about it, so these public intellectuals, you know, should I call it names, you know, the Chiokaku and all that science guys, these folks, you know, they get people excited, which is great, but they're not really taking on the serious issues head on. They're kind of skirting the realities. So just to kind of hammer that home, you know, today we're really emphasizing predictive capacities over clarity, which is unfortunate because my advice is to sort of take a middle road and to the extent you can, you know, merge the two. In education, because the reality is that's what I do. I mean, every day, you know, I was trying to map it out a little while ago so I could turn this to a slide for y'all. But you know, about 10% of my day is like firmly on each other side, and then the rest of my day I'm merging both sides. I think that goes. I think a lot of people, a lot of scientists, they're actually doing that too. They don't always acknowledge it explicitly, but they're constantly shifting between those two. Even mathematicians in the hard sciences, because if you talk to a mathematician doing like really high-end math, they're not crunching numbers. I mean, they're sitting there dealing with concepts and kind of, it's a lot more like art than it is like a calculation. So that's kind of the reality. And part of what this is coming from is I think a lot of people misconceive today when they talk about success of the modern world. You know, the success of modernity is the success of science. That's not accurate. You know, it's not science that succeeded the past 2-3 centuries. It's the scientific method. And the scientific method is a very different beast. You know, I think if you conflate the two, you start celebrating the wrong things, and then going forward, people have a harder time coming up with new innovations, new achievements, because they're focusing on the wrong aspect of the process. You know, just to hammer that home a little bit more, I mean, everybody I think has kind of intuitive understanding of how logic works. You know, we have our axioms, in come our observations, the machine chunk, and out those are conclusions. Yeah, I've always kind of with that. Naturally, if the axioms are wrong, though, it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. And I think, you know, if your students and everybody work with focuses exclusively on the quadrivium, exclusively on the math side of things, it's real easy to lose sight of that. You're so busy trying to get the right answer, you're forgetting if you're asking the right question in the first place. You know, I don't want to get too political here, but there's also, you know, some people talk about are people a blank slate, they come with the assumptions, something like that. Fortunately, you know, we're not blank slates, so you can have a feedback process. If your original axioms are wrong, that's okay, because if you apply logic properly and iterate, you're going to iterate to get to the right axioms eventually. And that's something else I think sort of the trivium approach to education offers, the quadrivium doesn't. In the quadrivium, there's such an emphasis on getting the right answer that people are afraid to be wrong. Whereas when the trivium is done properly, not only is it okay to be wrong, you should be wrong. You should always be wrong. To state it rigorously, and I'll get this a little bit more in a second, you know, existence is Bayesian. Like, you never know anything for certain. So it's like there's always a little bit more. You know, people do statistics, they appreciate there's always a little bit more. And I think the rhetoric and these sorts of trivium, you know, fields done properly really hammer that home. If you ever read the Platonic dialogues, you know, when they're discussing, they always start in the wrong place. And they do that on purpose, because they know you can't get to the right place. There's no such thing as start in the right place. You have to start in the wrong place and iterate until you get closer and closer and closer to the proper sort of like Bayesian network. The right thing. I think, you know, students who approach problems that way when they get older in their careers There's less of this, I have to do X to succeed. There's more of this, okay, you know, that didn't work. That's to be expected, you know, trying to iterate, find the next thing. There was Thomas Edison. So Peter Thiel, you all know who Peter Thiel is, right? He has this shtick I haven't heard about recently, but where he's saying, you know, kids shouldn't go to college. You know, they should just, college is a waste of time to get there, just go straight to work. And that's what his alumni, he pays these kids, and they're called Peter Thiel Scholars or something, and they get money to start a company and not go to school. That's not that novel idea. Thomas Edison had a questionnaire sent around to people, I forget what, some luncheon or something in Boston, I think. And one of the questions, you know, they're asking things like, you know, the speed of sound and these sorts of stuff. Like, did you really learn anything in college? Is it really useful? And one of the questions was, you know, college is not worth anything back then. It's not worth anything. You should just forget about this stuff. And one of the members of the audience spoke up and he said, this is what he said, he said, the value of an education in a liberal arts college is not the learning of many facts, but the training of the mind to think of something that cannot be learned in textbooks, which is huge back then. It's with the internet and self-learning, things like that, so it's even more important today, you know. You know, I hate playing hide the ball. I hate doing that. Does anyone know who said this? Who responded to Edison when he? So there's Albert Einstein, which if you, I don't know if you study special relativity, but you know when you first walk through the same path that Lorentz and these guys were working on special relativity, it really hammers that home. Like had they not stepped back from the original, from the mechanical apparatus that Newton and Royal set in place and really approached it in a new reevaluation of the axioms, none of that stuff would have been possible. So it's, you know, it's interesting, but it's also kind of unsurprising that Einstein was the one to acknowledge that, because it's certainly something applicable to his field. You know, and this isn't alone. I think a lot of people, a lot of scientists who really operate at their limit, they're going to come across this naturally with an explicit knowledge. George Box is another statistician. He's saying, all laws are wrong, it's useful. That's just the Bayesian thing. You know, if the oozing versus the coefficient of viscosity sort of analysis, it's there are different ways of expressing the same thing, and depending upon the context, one may be more appropriate than the other. You know, again, just a lot of this information. So I think we're going to have questions at the end, right? So, okay. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you.